All right, a very warm welcome and good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to another session of Relance webinar. Thank you for joining us on time. For those who are just joining us for the first time, welcome. Don't forget to like us on Facebook, YouTube, LinkedIn, if you haven't already. We have tips on how to improve your usage of our offerings, as well as tips on digitalization and updates on technology at your fingertips. So it's all on our social media sharing as well as updates. So if you have not actually followed us, you can actually do so by going to the Q&A section, which is the little blimp on the screen with the question mark on it. And clicking on the links over there, you will be able to go to our social media and join us, right? And follow us as well. Okay, the other thing that you can also do is kindly just give us your attendance for today. So I'm going to put the link for the attendance over at the Q&A section as well, so that you can actually click on it as well as register yourself for today's session, so that we will know that you are actually present and here. Right, so throughout the webinar, if you have any questions for the speaker, you can drop them on that section over there, and we will be able to take them and respond to them accordingly, right? So well, it is already December and it's just another 2 more weeks to go till it's 2022, where have the time gone, right? Looking back in 2021 and what we have achieved and done to reach here, it's amazing. And we would have to not have gotten here if we did not have any plans to do so, right? And many of the people I meet often ask me, what are the secrets behind the success? And how do you actually reach to a point where, you know, it's today, right? I mean, through the pandemic and everything. And yeah, I often tell them that, well, there is no secret, right? But it's who. The secret is who, right? And it's Stephen Chia. Welcome, Stephen. Thank you for joining us for today, Stephen.
Hi, Norman. Good afternoon. Everyone is doing well.
Yeah. So just a little bit about Stephen Chia, right? Stephen is a serial entrepreneur, having started, built, and exited several successful businesses in the area of property development, ISP, wireless broadband, IP services, and blockchain. Stephen's entrepreneurial and management skills are now being merged with his interest in training and building effective leaders. As a certified Vistage chair and Vistage resource speaker and trainer, right? Stephen holds a BBA and MBA in operations and international management and from Pace University, New York, USA, and is a HRDF registered certified trainer who regularly trains and consults for companies on business strategy planning and coaching, as well as building effective organizational teams and systems. Right. His most current assignment is CEO coach, mentor for the Malaysian Timber Council, MTC. Yes, program in partnership with Vistage Malaysia to facilitate a group of next-gen leaders for timber-related companies, preparing them for future success leadership in their organization. Wow, that's a mouthful, Stephen. There's a whole lot of achievement and credentials to go with. Okay, so without further ado, Stephen, I'm going to hand this session over to you. Welcome, Stephen.
Okay, thanks, Norman. Okay, for those of you who are joining us, welcome. I just want to just share some thoughts because it's end of the year. So I just want to share some thoughts in terms of now is normally a good time. And in fact, it's during this time that a lot of people start thinking about what's next, you know, what are they going to do in the coming year. So with this, I like to share some thoughts I have with regards to how to do planning or strategic planning and make it effective for your organization and your team. So allow me to share the slides for the session. Don't worry, the slides will be actually just maybe like 20 slides, but we should get it over in maybe an hour. But I like to actually take more questions and answer some of the questions that you guys may have. Okay. Okay, let's see. Let's work on this. Share the slides. Okay. Okay, are we good, Norman?
I think you can close that little, that little screen over there on the.
Okay. Maybe I'll move it to the side here. Okay.
Okay, we're good.
Okay, great. So basically, as I was saying, a lot of times in December is when companies start to look at what they're going to do in the coming year. So a lot of times this falls towards a last minute dash, and companies are stressed because at the end of the year, usually you have audits going on, you have closing of accounts, and you have probably salespeople chasing for collections, right? So, but planning is actually an integral part of what makes a effective company function. And without plans, it's really hard to keep track of what needs to be done, set the priorities, and so forth. So let's start. So actually, Norman mentioned that I'm working on a program with the Malaysian Timber Council. This is under this stage. And in this program, I think some of the members are probably here with us. But in this program, basically, a lot of the leaders have this challenge. They said, how do we get my people on the same page? How do we do planning? So I think it's appropriate that we do such a session at the end of the year so that companies can plan a little bit better. So basically, I'm nurturing a group of entrepreneurs who are working in their family-related timber businesses. And the whole idea is to prepare them, perhaps one day carry the big flag and take over and be the successors for their organization. So let's get started, okay? So today, what we're going to look at, we're going to briefly run through why do we need to go through strategic planning for our organization. And a lot of companies do it, but why do the traditional planning method doesn't seem to work as well, or you're not getting the kind of results from your team as the end of year rolls around? I will also share in terms of what is a strategic roadmap that for you to use in order to do proper planning with your team. Lastly, I will share just some tips after learning from some of the companies that I've trained and worked with before. What are some of the best practices or effective methods that they use to implement their plan once they come up with it? All right, so let's move on. Okay, before we do that, let's have a little bit of exercise after lunch. I like to do a quick survey on what has been your strategic planning or annual planning experience within your company. So we actually have prepared a survey, right? So
Yes,
maybe you can run that for me. Yeah.
Right. There's a link in the Q&A section that you can actually click on, as well as we'll be sharing the QR code that you can scan with your mobile phones. Okay, yep, this is the QR code that you can actually scan with your mobile phone to get into Slido and give us your answers. Do participate, yeah, so we can get some feedback from you guys. Over to you, Stephen.
Okay, so while we are doing that, let me get this out of the way. Sorry. Okay, while we're doing that, continue to do the survey, and it'd be good to hear from some of the companies out there what you guys do within your organization as it comes to planning for the year, right? So why do companies need time to plan?
You can go to the first question.
Okay. Okay. All right. The questions I have actually is, do you do any sort of planning? If you do you do once a year, or do you do it not so regular, or you've never done it formally, right? And then the second question is, normally when you do the planning session, how long do you take? Half a day, full day, or 2 or more days, right? And then thirdly, the question is, do you review the plan regularly during the course of the year? whether it's once a year, or do you look at the plan every quarter, or no, you never look at it once you put it together, you just kind of throws it to the team and let them run with it. Okay, Norman, we're good with the survey?
Yep, the polls are coming in for the first question. It's on the screen. Yep, we've got some feedback in already, Stephen.
Okay, where's the screen?
The main screen, the one that is being shared. Right.
Okay, I think I have it hidden at the back. Okay, let me pull that. Okay, all right. Okay, so that's the results from everyone. So it's just give you a perspective of what are some of the feedback for the survey, okay? I normally, when I do my training, usually I'm very surprised. A lot of the companies says, when I do the annual planning with them, I said, you know, when was the last time you guys sat down to do any sort of training? And I'm very surprised at actually some of the responses I get. They say, no, we've never done it before, ranging from that to, it's been a while since we sat together in a room like this. I don't know whether it's a Asian culture or whether it's a Malaysian thing, but a lot of organizations in the West, especially multinationals, they make annual planning part of their calendar. Okay, so in fact, in his book, Good to Great, Jim Collins shared that a lot of companies, effective companies that get a lot of results and a lot of growth is because they take time out to do proper planning, and they do a game plan for their company a lot of times on a regular basis. So why do we need to plan? Essentially, it helps you to reflect very often. This reflection is very important because when you take time to pause and reflect upon what are some of the successes, you celebrate those, and what are some of the challenges that you face or areas of improvement. This reflection is actually helpful because, sorry. This reflection is actually helpful because it helps the companies to look within themselves. Very often during the busyness of the operating year, a company always look outwards. They look at products, they look at their sales, they look at their customers, they even look at how to improve their performance within the industry. But very few times companies look inward. And this annual planning actually is a opportunity to reflect internally, especially for your people and for your processes. Of course, good planning helps companies to focus on the priorities and not be reactive. A lot of companies, especially those who are involved in sales-driven or product-driven organizations, they are always focusing outward, and their priorities seem to shift because as the demands of the business, like for example, in this entire 1.5 years, a lot of companies are reacting to what should we do with this whole COVID situation and all that. A lot of companies tend to forget about their priorities or what they set out to do maybe 2 years ago. So this reactive sort of management distracts you a lot from your priorities as a company. Of course, when you meet and sit down together, you tend to do a lot of alignment, especially with your core management team and also your department teams. A lot of times during operations meetings or even monthly meetings, you tend to rush through it and to deal with the issues of the day and do not do a lot of alignment. This alignment actually helps you a great deal as you push forward. Of course, a lot of companies, in particular, I think in the Asian context, they think planning equates to setting sales targets. Yeah, I set the sales targets dish it out to my sales team, or I set the KPIs for all my departments and dish it out to the departments and let them execute. They equate that to planning for the year. I do think that is important, but proper planning is not just about setting sales targets or KPIs for the companies for the year. It's about looking at a wider picture, right? So in essence, good planning actually achieves results, not just in one particular part of the business, but in all levels of the organization, right? So that is the reason why companies really need time to plan and do it on a regular basis, and at the very least, with a sit down at the end of the year, maybe to look at an annual plan. So how come some of the plans or some of the annual planning that they do fail to achieve the desired results, right? So a lot of companies say, yeah, we do plan, we come up with things, and but just somehow my team or my organization is not able to give me the kind of results that we set out to do at the beginning of the year. Here are some of the possible reasons. Of course, one of the regular complaints that company have is like, well, we do it every year. It's like a year-end ritual that we do. And once we plan, we put it all on paper and then we dish it out, and that's it. That's the end of the activity. So this ritual becomes almost like a given every year. And this is very common actually in some organizations, especially in maybe in GLCs, where they say, okay, year end is usually maybe a trip, maybe outstation or something, to sit down and plan, and then that's it, right? And we end with a huge year end party, right? So it's just part of the calendar of the company. Of course, a lot of times in smaller companies, it's top-down driven, meaning the CEO locks himself in a room, or MD or the founder of the company, or maybe one or two partners sit down and lock themselves in a room and figure out what they want to do next year. And then it's top-down driven. Maybe they come out of the room and they say, here's the plan for the year. Here's what we want to achieve, right? So when that happens, usually it's sales or KPI driven. That means this few individuals or few leaders in the company says, this is what we're going to try to achieve, and just go get it done, right? And of course, a lot of times when they are big goals, they sometimes lack the depth that we need to see, or they do not have specific implementable details for the team to follow, right? Of course, when it's top-down driven, or even if it's all the leaders in the company lock themselves in the room, and usually sometimes it is very common to have mismatched expectations, and at the end of the year, the alignment is not there. The team just said, sorry, boss, come June or even come September in the third quarter, they'll say, sorry, boss, we couldn't meet your KPIs, or we couldn't meet your sales targets, right? Of course, part and parcel of why company plans do not achieve its desired results is because there is lack of ownership. That means there's no one champion taking on the responsibility of certain priorities or goals for the company. Of course, if you do not have metrics to measure, and only if sometimes the only measurement is the financial figure, that means it's the sales of the company, or it's profit and loss metric. So usually the metrics is too broad to be able to kind of troubleshoot where are the missing gaps, right? Of course, in our millennial workforce, and also now Gen Z, right, workforce, we are changing employee profiles. We have a younger set of employees and staff who's maybe used to getting spoon-fed, who says, well, let the boss plan it. I just follow what I'm being told to do, right? So this millennial kind of mindset, or even the what I call the Gen Z mindset, actually works against the idea of doing proper planning. And of course, at the end of the day, when there's lack of monitoring, when the plan is an annual plan, it's not broken down into smaller chunks. Without monitoring, it makes the plan go weary, and distractions happen throughout the year, and the results do not get achieved, right? So let's now concentrate a little bit on how about a roadmap, right? How
sorry,
do we?
sorry, Stephen.
Okay. Yeah.
Maybe could you just reshare your screen again, because it's not
Okay.
on. Yeah.
Okay. You got it? Is it okay?
Not yet.
Oh, okay. Okay, let's try it again. You got it?
Yeah, there you go. Right. So you need to close that little window as well at the bottom.
Okay. Sorry about that. Okay. So why do we fail to achieve? So these are perhaps maybe the 8 reasons why a lot of plans tend not to achieve the kind of results that the management would like to see, right? So here's maybe a roadmap. Maybe I'll just click all the way through, right? So if you want to do effective planning for your team, maybe these are the 5 areas that you might want to consider to look at. One is, how do we set the tone? How do we pick the right management team for the process? And how do we drive the plan throughout the organization? And why and how do we set priorities, metrics, or owners? And then, of course, how to make the plan work even better is, how do we communicate and monitor the progress of the plan? All right, let's drill down into each one of these. Okay, so how do we set the tone for a planning session, right? So first and foremost, when you do an annual planning, think of doing it off-site, right? The feedback that we got from the Slido is that a lot of planning they do, but they, perhaps consider an off-site. And I don't mean taking up the whole team and going on some resort somewhere. It can be even as simple as taking out a meeting room somewhere and getting it done. The reason why, when you do an offsite meeting, there is a lot of advantage, because number one, you have a lesser distractions from your day-to-day. When you take your team offsite, it can be a full day, it can be 2 days, but when you take them offsite, something somehow clicks and changes, because an offsite means fresh perspectives and fresh ideas, right? A different change of environment gives them a different outlook in looking at the business, right? And of course, any new ideas that you share with your team is probably be better received if it is in offsite, versus, let's say, you doing it in your own company's meeting room. Now, I don't care whether you go out and borrow your neighbor's company's meeting room to do it, but just do it anywhere but in your own conference room, right? Then I'm a proponent of getting the meeting to be facilitated instead of driven by the CEO or the MD. Have you ever noticed that when the boss is talking, nobody wants to talk anymore, right? And that is actually one of the primary reasons why getting a facilitator, especially one that will probably understand either your industry or your business, and or a good trainer or a good facilitator for driving the meeting. The facilitator will help you with the facilitated meeting. Actually, the facilitator will help you keep on course, keep the meeting on track, maybe prevent off-topic discussions, and even allow equal airtime for all, right? When the CEO or the founder or even the MD of the company attends a facilitated meeting, he's merely one of the participants, right? And he maintains that role as a peer throughout the session. Now that adds to much richer conversations versus if the planning meeting is done by the boss himself, right? And of course, in a planning meeting, you set proper ground rules, right? What are some of the rules? You say, okay, we're gonna take this 1 or 2 days. All work-related interruptions or phone calls, we keep it to a minimum. We ban the words like but, we should, or we always used to do that. Words like this, maybe you say, okay, for the next 2 days, we are not gonna use these words. We're gonna keep everything open, and we're going to not be censoring any new ideas or suggestions that come out from these 2 days of meeting. This is how you set the proper ground rules. Instead, you say, I allow the team to have real conversations, to have hard conversations, right? We will also talk about things like the elephant in the room. What is the most obvious problem that we have in the company, but we don't talk about it, right? So setting these ground rules set the tone for your planning session, right? And definitely, if you have the budget, doing offsite, maybe in the evenings, you can have a social gathering just to debrief everyone and also to just kind of let everyone have the kind of like airtime to relax and also share some thoughts about the meeting itself. And that way you are actually doing your team a real benefit because now they are more relaxed in a relaxed environment to share what is on their mind, and perhaps some of the good ideas will come from during the maybe the social event at the evening time. And having a meal together, nothing more than just a good way to end a planning meeting. In the meeting itself, begin the session to set the tone, to have the CEO or the founder or the head of department. When I say planning, it could be actually the head of department doing the planning for his team, or it could be the CEO for his whole company. Begin with the vision sharing by the CEO. What are some of the things that he wants to see in the next 6 months, next 12 months, right? The other method of doing setting the tone for the meeting would be set a theme for the year. For example, companies can say, okay, other than hitting all the normal priorities like sales increase or even they could say, okay, this theme of the year is we're going to go green, right? And that will be the overarching theme that he wants to set for the year. So if, for example, he says the theme of the year is we're going to go green, that means perhaps for the admin department, we're not going to print any of our invoices. We're going to go digital. Going green could mean we are going to use less energy as an organization, or we're going to reduce waste as an organization. Our warehouse, we're going to recycle some of the packaging. So setting that theme for the year puts your team to work towards a different goal other than the normal primary goal of achieving whatever targets that you set during the annual planning. Of course, some helpful exercises leading up to the planning could be you might want to get your company data or your company financials for the year before. Get that prepared beforehand. You might also do an exercise with the team and say, okay, let's all 2 weeks before the planning meeting, we're going to do a SWOT analysis. That means the strength, weakness, opportunities, and threats. We're going to do a study of the SWOT of each of the departments. Or as a company, what do you think our SWOT is for our company? You can also do a 360 review, not just of your products or services, but maybe of your various departments. Ask your customers, what do they think of your product? Ask your suppliers, what do they think of your paying cycle? Ask the people that you partner with, your partners in the industry, what do they think of your organization? So this kind of reports are very helpful as you go and into the room to do the planning. Of course, it also helps to have some sort of industry info. In this stage, we have a report that we put out every quarter called the CEO's Confidence Index. Now, that report actually will give you a snapshot of what is the pulse of the economy in Malaysia in that quarter, or what do the CEOs of nearly 1,000 companies think about in this quarter. Now, with that type of industry info, you can able to gauge where you are, your company, as it relates to that data, all right? So having those will help you plan better, and it sets the tone for the meeting, even if it's a one-day only planning meeting, right? I talked about this quite a bit. Picking a core team is important because this is the planning team that will get things done moving forward. When you set out to pick the core team, you can include what I call the number 2. For example, most planning meetings, chances are you'll be the core management team. Maybe your head of sales, head of manufacturing, head of marketing, or even head of admin, or even head of finance, right? Consider bringing in your number 2. That means your assistant who's helping your head of departments. That way, they are able to see what goes on. You can actually bring them in, these what I call number 2, to be observers only. Then you can incorporate, you can have them do presentations during half-yearly review or even quarterly review. Now, when you are picking your team, one of the most important aspects is actually to do some alignment exercise. Now, if you have a good facilitator, there are many exercises that you can do to do alignment. One of them is actually have the team share the SWOT analysis on their own operations. Have a deep look at their team and say, what are the strengths of my team? What's the weakness? Now, this adds to the alignment, right? And of course, there are a lot of facilitated, as a trainer, I find that very effective. There are a lot of exercises that you can do to align the team before you even go deep into doing the planning itself. Of course, within this session, you can do what I call shared vision. A lot of times, there are some things that some department heads might like to do. So sharing that vision with the rest of the group, they could get a buy-in from the rest of the group. For example, I gave the example of going green. It could be maybe a lot of people feel that maybe our company image needs a bit of uplifting, right? So that could be a shared vision that can be shared by the team. Of course, setting priorities. In the meeting, it's all about setting priorities. What are some of the things we want to look at? It doesn't need to be many. It can be within 1 year, we look at maybe 3 priorities that we want to set, right? Maybe 2 goals and 3 priorities we want to set, right? Then, of course, it's the process of developing the strategic plan for the year, right? So many of you have probably done this before. You will look at the year before, how you guys have fared, and then you develop the goals and priorities. I don't need to probably give you a lot of examples of this, but basically this part, a lot of companies seems to do really well, but this is where it stops. A lot of companies says, okay, we come up with the goals and priorities for the next year. Let's wrap it up and go out and execute and tell the team. This is where a lot of companies will find out after 1 quarter, after maybe half a year, that it's not working. Why is it not working? Is because there is a big step that is missing. And this is this. What you just did was develop the entire goal and priority for the company. But the team members, what I call the department teams, have no idea you guys are going to do that, right? So that's why I call the strategic plan a process. It's because now the hard work of the plan begins. When you develop the goals and priorities for the year, each of the head of departments, including the management team, the top management team, takes that and go to the team level and repeat that. That means now each of the team, each of the head of department or division goes back to their team and say, here are the goals and priorities for the year. Now, based on those goals and priorities, what are the things we're going to get done in order to achieve those, right? At the same time, we're going to develop some tools that we're going to give these leaders to share with their team. So just a quick recap is basically what we're trying to do is we're going to drive this process deeper into the organization. First thing we do is we guide and develop our leaders in the planning process. That's the first part. Then we let the leaders go back to their teams and facilitate the session with their team. We arm them with the standard templates for roll-ups, right? And I'll share a little bit, I'll show an example of that, right? And then we will follow up session with the core team and align and review it, right? So if I were to show it graphically, this is how it looks like. Okay, so for example, this is a tool that you can, coming out from the planning, the first planning session, you give this template to your team and you say, okay, we have two priorities for the sales, we have 1 priority for the IT team, we have 3 priorities for the marketing team. Now from that onwards, they will go out and figure out the tasks that need in order to achieve those priorities. So in a nutshell, this is basically what happens, right? That's why I call this the strategic planning process, right? Now, the first thing you do is you sit down as a core team, you develop the company goals and priorities, and of course the team for the year, right? And then the second step is you want the leaders to come out of that meeting to set up a time where they can sit down with their team to come up with some specific measurable task with metrics, right? The third step is the CEO with the core team comes back together again to consolidate all the priorities and roll it all up into one concise document, and everybody commit to it, right? Of course, after that, you do the first quarterly review, maybe 3 months later. Then you do a half-yearly review 6 months later, right? So that's the sequence of how we get it done, right? The step 1, 2, and 3 should be within a 2-week period. For example, now is December, right? So what we're going to do is, let's say we set December 20th has a first round to do the first, to sit down and develop the goals and priorities and the theme for the year, right? Within the 2-week period, the leaders will have to go down to their teams to develop the specific measurable task to achieve those goals and priorities. Put it on paper, and just as I put previously in the spreadsheet, to have them commit to it, right? And then maybe in 1 week later, or not more than actually 4 weeks, 1 week later, do the third part, which is all the department heads, the core team, come back together with the CEO or the MD of the company and say, these are all the priorities we have. These are all the tasks that my team committed to do. These are the person in charge or the owners, and these are the metrics we're going to measure it by. All right, so this is basically what we're going to do. All right. Okay, so think of the planning has the first step, and then the rest is the process. And what you're trying to do is actually you're making your leaders work with their teams. And what you're doing in the first step is actually teaching your leaders how to do the process with their team, right? Now, of course, once they come up with the committed plan, which is the part 3, right? What do you need to do after that? Now you need to have what I call set a communications or meeting rhythm, daily or weekly huddles, right? Now the advantage is when you have something like this, imagine the sales team when they have their daily or weekly huddles. Now it becomes very easy for the head of sales to say, okay guys, we're having a weekly meeting. Where are we in terms of task 1, priority 1, task 1? Where are we in terms of priority 2, task 1, task 2, task 3, all right? So now the beautiful part about it is that when you do that, your meetings become very focused. There's no more agenda, there's no more minutes of meeting that you need to refer to jog everybody's memory. Every meeting now becomes, let's look at where we are in terms of this overall plan that we set out to do, right? Same goes for marketing. If the marketing says we have 3 priorities and we have 3 things, 3 tasks, of course, there will probably be more. Each priority can have maybe 5 tasks, right? So that is actually what happens. Now, the nice thing about it is that when you have your monthly head of department meetings, what is going to be your report? Your report will be actually the progress of your annual plan, right? Again, it's the reporting of this template and what you guys have done, and you can present it in a lot of ways. Now, the advantage of doing this is very simple. You are constantly reviewing your annual plan in great detail, right? Each department will be looking at the task at hand in order to achieve the priorities that they set out to do, right? So when we monitor plans like this, and I think VLAN, you guys are being Microsoft 0365, and also you guys do a lot of dashboards, right? So you have things like HubSpot. So how do you monitor the plan? Basically, you already have those tools. If you are a 0365, you're a Microsoft Office, you can use Project Planner, you can use the Microsoft Teams, right? You can use your task planner within Microsoft 0365, right? You can use the existing IT tools that you have, and they become the tools that you would need to monitor your plan. Imagine each task is tracked. Now, when you have your weekly or monthly huddle, you just look at where you are, the progress bar. The dashboard part of it makes it very, very easy and very efficient for you to monitor the plan. And same goes when you do your quarterly or biannually reviews. The nice thing about using tools like HubSpot is that you can actually have a metrics to measure things by. For example, you said, okay, we're going to monitor, let's say your priority, for example, your priority for the year is let's increase sales by 20%, right? So the salesperson says, okay, right now we are doing a sales funnel of 20 per week, right? That means in order to achieve 20% sales increase, we need to increase that sales funnel to maybe 40 sales call a week. So what is your measuring metrics? The measuring metrics will be how many calls we make per week. Now it's at 20, we want to do 40. So when you have a person assigned, a salesperson or a sales manager assigned to that metric, it's very easy to monitor its progress, right? Especially if you're using something like 0365 dashboard, right? Now, the nice thing about when you start assigning individuals to each task, guess what? Those of you that don't like to do performance review for your company or for your staff, right? This becomes an easy way for you to keep track of your people and how they're doing, how's their performance over the year. If a person who is assigned a particular task every month, they're able to achieve it on time and also achieve it beyond expectation, that will garner well when you try to do the performance review and also do compensation reviews with your staff, right? So that makes you using your plan as a means to track the performance of your staff. The more tasks that your team leaders assign to its people that relates to the priority you're trying to achieve, the better it is for you to monitor the performance of your staff, right? And with tools that, VLAN, you guys are very good at it. You constantly have a lot of dashboards in the products that you guys push out to the market. That becomes very easy. For example, one of the things that you guys use regularly is Zendesk. In fact, you help companies set up Zendesk support. For example, if we want to improve, one of the priorities, the company want to improve the customer service, they can use Zendesk, and within Zendesk, there is a metric that measures how frequent the calls are answered, how many calls are being taken care of, and what time frame they use to solve a trouble ticket. Now, this is built into the Zendesk support desk software. So these are the kind of tools that help you monitor your performance of your people and at the same time use it to monitor your annual plan that you set out to do. Quite easy once you have it in place, right? So just a quick recap. Basically, we start by setting the tone for the meeting. We align the core team, the management team, we develop the planning process. Then we have the team leaders go out and drive the strategic plan throughout the organization, doing exactly what they just did in the first meeting, right? Then through that exercise, they will come up with the priorities, the metrics to measure, and who's the owner of each task. I didn't say the owner of each priority, I said the owner of each task that will help you achieve the priority. Then setting a communications rhythm throughout the organization, whether it be a daily huddle, a weekly huddle, or even a monthly head of department meeting, and using dashboards or the IT tools that you have to monitor the progress of the plan, right? So that is in a nutshell how you can achieve the kind of results that you want to see once you come up with the plan, right? So what is next? Don't wait, set a date for your annual planning. Identify the core team and do your first round of strategic plan. Maybe 2 weeks, or I would recommend even shorter, 1 week later, have your division heads or your head of department do their respective plannings, do their planning with their respective teams. Then come back together maybe 1 or 2 weeks later, revisit and consolidate what I call the annual plan. That means the whole company plan with all the department priorities and the tasks in a consolidated, concise template. Then go out and communicate a plan throughout the organization and say, this is what we set out to do for the year. These are priorities, these are goals, these are priorities, this is a theme, and these are some of the tasks that everyone has set out to do. Set the communications rhythm and the monitoring method, and then schedule checkpoints of the plan. Now, when you do your checkpoints, and I do this, in fact, today we did one, which is half-yearly review for the VLAN team, right? I've been working with the VLAN team for the past 2 years. They've been following this rhythm. So every quarter, we do a review, and it's a facilitated session. I facilitate it together with the CEO of the company and to all the department heads. We do a checkpoint every quarter, and then half yearly, we do also a session. At the checkpoint is where we say, okay, where are we with the plan and the priorities? How far did the team go with all the priorities? Do we need to modify the priorities? Do we need to add to those priorities that we have achieved, right? So these checkpoints are quite important for you to monitor and make sure that you're on the right track. Without these checkpoints, you don't know until it's too late that things are not working, right? So I recommend quarterly, of course, in addition to the regular monthly huddles that you guys do, right? So here are some of the references. I found two good ones online that makes it very simple. This is more towards how to do proper planning, not so much of the process of doing strategic plan the way I explained it, but more of what are some of the best practices in order for you to do a plan, right? I do this regularly with companies. I have a workshop, a facilitated workshop that I do for how can companies do strategic planning for their business, especially those who are in a fast growth industry, or those who are actually struggling to try to implement plans throughout their organization. I have a second plan, that one I work together with VLAN, where once you come up with a strategic plan, how does digitalization, how does the IT tools help to visualize and to monitor the plan that you just created? A lot of companies tend to do it the other way around. That means they use technology first without figuring out what they want to do. So I think it's more important you come up with a strategic plan, and how does IT support that plan or help you monitor or reduce the kind of like the workload to monitor the plan. So these two programs I do regularly. Of course, these are some of the companies that I've worked with. Yesterday, I did the same talk with Internet Alliance. They're actually a combination of a number of internet-related businesses, e-commerce partners, and all that. With Malaysian Timber Council, I'm also doing that through the Vistage program also at the same time, right? So with this, I would like to take any questions that you guys have, and or any comments that you like to share. All right, so Norman, back to you.
Thanks, Stephen. Thank you so much for that sharing. It's really good. Yeah, so for those of you who would like to ask questions, right? I know you can't unmute your mic, so what you can do is you can actually drop the questions in the Q&A section, and then we will take them, and Stephen will help to answer them, right? So I'll read it out, and Stephen will help to answer them. Yeah, actually, this strategic planning is, for me, Stephen, right? It's actually really setting a pace and momentum, You know, sometimes we tend to like continue doing work and doing the daily tasks that we've been given, right? And then we like forget about monitoring how the rest of us are doing, right? So you know what the good thing about the sessions that you do for us, right, is that when we started having COVID, right, and we were all stuck at home, then we didn't have to worry about how to monitor our staff or the progress of the rest of the team, right? Because we do this often already, right? You've already set the pace in the organization where we meet up on a daily basis, catch up to see whether or not we are all doing fine. And while we are all working from home, we are able to actually know where is the progress of the departments, right? And that actually helped us as well, right? To move forward, right? Not just stay there, right? I am sure a lot of you all out there, right, who don't actually have this in place, right? This process of daily huddles and quarterly reviews and what you call is planning, right? Strategy planning, right? I'm sure you all had found it a bit difficult to actually catch up with your staff when you stop meeting face to face in the office, and that was a challenge for lots of the companies out there, right? When suddenly the whole new norm kicked in, everyone's working online, right? So I think there's a couple of few questions that came in, right, Stephen? So one of them is that if they've not actually have this started, right, how do you suggest to get this new culture into the organization, right? This daily huddle and all.
Well, I had a conversation with a CEO, and he says, sometimes it's easier for me to just kind of do it, rather than teach my staff. I think you will get burned out if you are the kind of leader in the company that does that. I think the right way will be spend the time. Spend the time to do the planning and spend the time to teach your team about the planning process. You'll be surprised at how quickly your team can able to embrace it. And the more they do it, the better they become at it. And you can take baby steps, set 2 priorities, throw them out there for 1 quarter, and you'll be very surprised how your team is able to perform. So they get more confident as it snowball, the more results that they see. And I see it happening in the companies that I help, because in the beginning, they'll say, yeah, you know, the boss just does everything and they just tell us what to do and all that. Now the sales teams are starting to challenge the boss and say, hey, you know, we can do this. We can set our own priorities. These are the areas that you have not looked at. So constantly, I'm surprised by the core team coming up with even more suggestions. So like they say in the Nike ad, right? Just do it.
In terms of measuring metrics, certain departments, it's a little bit difficult to measure metrics on a weekly basis, right? I mean, if it's not figures or numbers, right? For example, if you put advertisements or, you know, social media sharings, how do you suggest those sort of like marketing, especially a marketing department, right? How do you suggest them to measure the metrics? Like maybe designing, right? The designer, how do you measure his metrics? Right? You know what I mean?
Well, actually, it's true. Some are maybe a little bit on a longer time frame. So maybe a bi-monthly type of measurement would be good. But then it's also a lot of things can be measurable. For example, you can say, okay, if currently we do 2 postings a month. Can we do 4 postings a month on 2 separate social media platforms? So that immediately sets you on a matrix count already. So now you're able to measure, say, okay, right now we are only doing 2 Facebook live postings, Facebook postings, right? Can we do now 4 on 2 platforms? So now you set the task as 4 social media postings per month, for example. And now you are able to see whether your people can do it. If they can achieve 4, now you throw them a second challenge and say, okay, now let's do 3 social media platforms and do 5, right? That is actually a measurable matrix. I had a very interesting question in one of my company training where the warehouse guy says, what is my matrix? So the boss says, I want a more efficient warehouse. So what is his matrix, right? So what is a efficient warehouse is, you know, you're able to move things faster, you're able to find things easier, right? So the matrix was very simply, I want you to clear 20% of the space in the warehouse, right? So what's the matrix? Every month or every week, the boss will ask, how out the warehouse 20%, how much have you cleared? So he just say, okay, I've done 5%, I've done 10%, I've done 15%, right? So that actually can be a measurable metric. So you imagine that it's not many things can be measured that way, but actually it can. Even things that seemingly cannot be measured. So if I am the warehouse manager, I'll say, okay, I commit to, because the company wants to be more efficient and all that, I commit to clearing 20% of the warehouse, right? So I divide that 20% to 4 of my staff in the warehouse. Immediately now I can track which 4 of my staff can do the job better, right? If after 4 months, the 4 guys, 2 of them cleared their 5%, but the other 2 didn't, guess where the review is going to go to, right? The good review is going to go to. That is actually how we measure. I think with dashboards and with even things like customer service, if you have a Zendesk sends out reports of how fast you pick up the phone, right? Or how fast you respond to trouble tickets. So with tools like that, it's become very easy for you to improve performance throughout as you're tracking them.
Right. You mentioned about doing offsite better than in the office, right? So in this, currently, now the pandemic and people are afraid of meeting offsite. What do you suggest? What would be the best?
Well, offsite has a very different aura. You know, when you do offsite, people tend to change. Do one at least, all right? Of course, now with slowly opening of the hotels and or meeting places, it's a little bit easier. But before, when we were under lockdown, right, do short meetings if you are having to do it online, and it's okay, you know. But one of the things about doing planning, when you're doing planning, even if it's online, let's say you have branch offices all over Malaysia, right? And you try to do planning, um, it's okay, you can do it online. But one caveat that you want to do would be to do short sessions. It can be, instead of doing a full day session, maybe do 2 half-day sessions with your team. Then they're a little bit more refreshed and they have time in between to think about a little bit about what's been discussed. And definitely, I'm a strong proponent of everybody should turn on their videos. I don't care whether you're dressed in your t-shirt or in your home pajamas, but when I see your video online, I know how you feel. So that should be a minimum, right? And if it's a facilitated meeting, even if it's online, the facilitator would be able to guide it quite well. And at the same time, once again, I have to stress the boss does not do all the talking, because if the boss do all the talking, nobody else talks.
True. That's right. Yeah, maybe we have a time for maybe one last question, Stephen. Okay, in terms of aligning their priorities to the goals, right? How do they do that? How do you suggest them to do that alignment in terms of the company's priorities with their departmental goals?
Okay, the way it's structured, let's say the priority, let's pick something other than sales. Let's say the priority for the company is, let's improve our image, right? Our brand image. Now, each department can attack that priority in a very different way. For example, the admin team can say, okay, to improve the image, what we're going to do is we're going to propose to the boss to at least just paint the front of our factory. Give it a fresh coat of paint. 2 cans of paint not going to cost you a lot, right? So guess what? That changes the look, the physical look of the company, right? Now, the second thing is the salespeople says, okay, we're going to go out and we're going to wear shirts with our company name on it. We're going to proudly display it, right? We're going to have pens that we give with our company name on it to our clients, right? And all our invoices will have, all our statements, our invoices will have a new, fresh look. In fact, the fresh look is not going to be on white paper. It's going to be on the yellow color, which is like, you know, DG, right? DG yellow is their color, right? So all our paperwork is going to be on light yellow color from now onwards. You see, each department, even though the priority is how to improve the brand image, right? Each department can think differently. Then, of course, the marketing department say, okay, we're going to refresh our website. We're not going to spend a lot of money to redesign it, but we're just going to change the color scheme, the theme, and we're going to rejuggle things around a little bit, make it a fresher look, because we've been using that website for like 8 years and it's getting old and ugly, right? So you see, one priority, but 5 different departments do it differently. You see how collectively, if I'm a customer dealing with this company, I'm like, hey, you know, last time I went to their place, they painted the whole place, you know, business must be good, even though it may not be, right? But the customer's perception of you as an organization changes, right? Then they say, oh, now they're writing blogs. In fact, they're writing, they're putting out videos about how to use their product. Guess what? If I'm a customer, I feel good doing business with you, right? So you see how just one priority like that, and same goes for theme, right? One priority, but each department can do things differently to reach that priority. right? Now, you ask, how do we measure, how do we measure the metric? So for the guys who are doing the painting of the factory, we'll say, okay, we're going to paint the whole factory our fresh new yellow color in 2 months. So every month, every week, what do you report to the boss? How far are we with the painting project? That's all, right? But if you look at it and stand back and look at it, you know that that admin department, by them painting the office, is actually working towards the big goal of that priority, changing our image. You see? So that's how we can break it down at the department and even to the individual staff level, right? And it could be even the receptionist saying, okay, from now onwards, I will greet everybody that comes through the door, even the security guard at the factory, right? So that changes the tone of how we look at things, right? It could be something as simple as that brand image or the company image, right? You'll be surprised that over time, companies that have been around a long time, I would say maybe more than 10 years, they become very jaded. When they become jaded, bad habits start to form. When staffs work in that environment, they also, over time, it's like a subconscious thing, they get jaded too, right? That's why I'm a strong proponent of every 3 years, you should do a coat of paint in your office, right? Just to give everyone, or rearrange the office just for the heck of it, right? Because it gives people different perspective and refreshes everyone.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Right. Thank you so much, Stephen. Any last words, any last advice for the attendees?
Yeah.
And how do we get in touch with you?
I think, well, feel free if you are keen to look at some sort of facilitation for your annual planning. I do encourage companies to do that, even if they miss the end of the year, just do it and try for 1 quarter, because by trying and starting, it sets your company on a trajectory of putting your people together, putting all the heads together and thinking, how do we solve problems and how do we reach the kind of targets to be the kind of company that we want to be, right? And that to me is important, especially in this environment as we are going back, slowly ramping up after the COVID, right? So it's even more crucial for companies to reinvent themselves and constantly think of how they can improve themselves. Right?
That's right. That's right. Thank you so much for your time, Stephen. Yeah, thank you everybody for staying back. I know it's been more than an hour, but it's really good sharing as well as, it's the new year. It's going to be new priorities, new goals, new planning. It's really important to actually take a step back and slow down the pace and really look into the business and see where we can actually improve it. And yeah, this planning session is very important. So if you do want to know or get in touch with Stephen, you can scan this QR code, which is displayed on the screen, and let us know. We will get in touch with you. We will provide you with Stephen's contact so you can actually engage him to help you plan better, right? And yeah, it's going to be Christmas next week, right, Stephen? So Merry Christmas to everyone and Happy New Year in case we don't see you. And yeah, have a good week ahead. Thanks,
Yeah,
everyone.
you too. No one. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.